Welcome to Ready Set Exec, the podcast, where we sit down with executives across North America to unpack their business, leadership, and expertise.
And every other week, join us for Market Watch, all things hiring, real insights and no fluff. Hey everyone, I'm here with Alan McLaren, co-founder of Strata Originals, the leadership branding firm that helps CEOs build trust at scale. He has coached more than 600 CEOs to clarify their leadership signal so their voice, presence, and perspective land with authority in every room and on every platform. With more than 30 years in executive roles across public companies, partnerships, and entrepreneurial ventures, Alan brings a rare combination of operational excellence and communication expertise. Known for his steady presence and practical insight, and helps CEOs understand how their signal shapes perception, drives influence, and unlocks the outcomes that matters most. Good to have you on the podcast, Alan.
Quite a mouthful. Who wrote that?
That's ChatGPT. It's not me, but it does a pretty good job of capturing, with Strata, and I think it's important we talk about this a little bit in terms of what you guys do. So leadership branding for CEOs and executive, that's a lot different than your average content creator just pumping out videos for a brand or something, right? You're trying to create a leadership storyline, lived experience, visibility, values for these executives. And it's a pretty high-end service that you're offering that to really improve their brand, right?
Well, it differentiates from personal branding. When we started our business 4 years ago, we were in the personal branding space, which just meant really become more visible online, be seen online. And what we've learned over the last 4 years is that's still valuable and viable to do. But for leaders who are running companies, it's not enough. Because in our world, leadership branding is about being felt, not just being seen. Big difference. So how do people feel when they interact with you? And oh, by the way, that gets transmitted not only on videos that you do online, it gets translated in the boardrooms and the meetings that you have. So it makes you a better leader when you communicate effectively from your zone of genius than just trying to create content for content's sake.
Yeah, I think some intentionality behind what we're doing and where we're putting ourselves out there. I know, when we're looking at just any executive or even like sales reps now, having a social media presence is becoming like more and more important. It's actually a screening question a lot of times for hiring, sales leadership is if they have a social presence, just because you're trying to do social selling with your brand as well, right? So it's an added value to hire someone with a social presence. How does it work from a CEO perspective, though? What is the aims behind this?
So if you think about it from a CEO perspective, what is more trusted, a business or a human? Especially in the age of AI. So I think we'd all agree that humans are more trusted. So think about this. If a CEO is out there building trust and being visible in their leadership zone, in their leadership signal, they build trust for the business because they're not selling a thing. They're just out there sharing. So we have one of our clients that's running a multi-billion-dollar company, never talks about anything to do with the business, never talks about marketing. He talks about values and programs and all the things that matter to him and where he grew up in the world. And the comments that he gets back are building trust. So what happens when that company starts marketing, their name is seen, they're equating it with this gentleman, and then trust goes up everywhere. So for salespeople, if their CEO is out there, their sales job becomes easier. Their marketing team becomes easier. Their HR becomes easier because there's a trusted entity out there who's singing from a songbook that makes sense. And at the end of the day, the values of a company are driven by the CEO. So if you're feeling that, then everything else is better downstream, assuming everything's authentic and real. So that's the big reason for a CEO doing it.
So in that sort of vein of, it's important to be front and center, let's say, as the brand, almost like the brand owner, let's say, right?
Yeah.
How does that come into play when you see some of these CEOs taking a political stance and things like that? Because there's been the most recent thing I think that happened that was like was obviously Coldplay, where
Yeah.
the concert. I mean, it was worldwide news, right?
Yeah.
So I guess in that sense, having your personal brand is important, but also you can do damage to the company is huge if the CEO is seen doing something unscrupulous or something, right? So
Well, we can't. Can I be honest? We can't fix
yeah,
stupid, right? Well, nobody can
yeah,
fix stupid, right? If you're like, and it just happened recently with the college coach at Michigan, right? You do stupid things today, whether you have a presence or not. You have a
yeah,
presence because everything in the world is recorded. It's all here. So
yeah,
whether you're getting people recording you or you're in a security line, you're on camera with something. So really, you've just got to realize you are always on. As a CEO or anybody in the world, you're on all the time. So just be you, be normal, and don't do stupid things. Because if you do stupid things, you really don't recover from those. Like that guy
yeah,
that's CEO for the Coldplay concert, you know what? You're not recovering from that. You're just not, because you showed
yeah.
unethical, bad judgment, whatever, all the things you can dream of that a good CEO should not have. So that's not about social presence. Social presence in this context is doing the right things, never selling, never pitching. And I'd love to talk about social selling as well, because I think there's a lot of opportunities for sales reps to learn how to do that
Yeah.
right, because they're not doing it right in a lot of ways. But from a CEO perspective, imagine if the CEO is out there doing this in a great way and they're connecting with people. The world becomes any outcome is possible with trust. Any outcome. They're not possible without it.
So what would you say to CEOs that are not, too media savvy? That, I mean, obviously you need to have that executive presence as a CEO, but it doesn't mean you want to be in front of the camera all the time either, right? So I mean,
So, well, the
is that
question I
something
would
you need
ask
to
you is
develop
why
or?
wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you want to be? Why wouldn't you want to be?
Yeah,
So if you're not, many CEOs are not comfortable with the skill, but they've risen up to be a level, and it depends on the size of the business. But if you're running $100 million plus business, you've already had the crap kicked out of you in every corner and you survived it as a leader, right? So you've obviously done
yeah,
some really good things to get to that level. Now the next level is visibility, but from a leadership signal, meaning authentic and presence and all the things. If you're not great at that, guess what? You can learn that. You may not be
yeah,
as skilled as the next guy, but you can learn that skill because it's a skill. Communication is a skill, oration is a skill. But what I would say is if you and I were doing the same video, it would come out differently because of the way we communicate.
yeah,
That's okay. We don't
absolutely.
want to curate you. We want to unlock what is best and authentic in you. And every CEO can do that. They just need the help to do that in a lot of ways.
No, it totally makes sense that you have to work that muscle, just like everything else that you got to
Exactly.
learn. You
Exactly.
know, So let's just say for people that are starting their personal branding journey or trying to build their leadership brand, what are some like basic things or basic assets that every executive should try to develop for themselves?
Well, learn how to build relationships online. I mean, it's the simplest thing. Like you say, I don't want to do content. Great. You don't have to do content, but boy, you can build relationships online without selling anything. You can just connect with other humans, learn. I mean, LinkedIn's sitting in front of you, YouTube's sitting in front of you to learn anything you ever dreamed of learning.
Yeah,
Be curious, go learn, and find out where your gaps are. Like you can go to ChatGPT today, as you described, we joked about it, and learn anything. Ask it anything about you. So just type it in. What am I? And if it'll come out, well, that's not what I want the world to know. Well, then make sure your story on LinkedIn is completely accurate on what you want. If it's not, so I know mine is, because I get people that come back to me and say, you have this funny little title called Chief Squirrel Tamer. What's that about? And then I tell them, I said, well, it's because I work with CEOs and I have an ADHD business partner. So I'm always pulling people back into the center. What does that say? He's got a sense of humor.
yeah,
And then I have my values there. What are your values? What's your purpose? It's to love and be loved. Oh, he's a heart leader. They don't even know me, but they're reading my story. And then when they see my videos, they go, it's congruent with his story. So I
yeah,
will learn to trust this gentleman. If I was out there going, and you need to buy my stuff and it's a premium service and it's only for, then you're not going to go, no, no, he's selling me. I don't want to see that. I just want someone to teach me and be in service of others. That's
yeah.
what you can do. Everybody can do that. And
Yeah.
that's what I
No,
would say,
that makes
especially
sense.
early in your career.
So how do you, part of that is like building visibility without feeling performative, right? Being
Yes,
authentic. We always hear that authenticity is
correct,
important, right?
correct.
What kind of content do you recommend people to do if they're trying to do social selling, as well, for
Well,
people that are,
think about this. So first of all, let me just talk about social selling. Social selling should be about relationship building, not marketing. So anytime you connect with me and the next thing I see in a DM is, and by the way, I sell web services. Like, how's that working for you? It's not. But if you were to do this and say, hey, Alan, thank you for connecting with me. I know you're in the leadership branding service. I would love to follow you and learn more as time goes on. And then you be patient and just connect with me and then say something insightful on my post. Now I go, oh, I like this guy. Over 3 months, over 4 months, over 5 months, you're building trust. Then when
yeah,
I need a web guy, who am I going to call? That guy was cool, not the guy pitching me all the time. Right. So,
yeah.
so that's one aspect to it. So if you don't develop your own content, at least be authentic and real in how you communicate with them. Meaning, I really want to learn. I don't want to sell, because people buy when they're ready to buy. You can't push them to buy. You want to
Yeah.
be
No,
available and be top of mind. That's good social selling. But I would say 90% of the reps I talk to are terrible at it because they think it's marketing and it's relationship building. So if they could switch that, their success long term would be better, in my view.
I can totally relate to that in terms of like when to pitch and so on, and being more patient with outreach. I mean,
I mean,
there's
John, it's the
always
same in your business,
the
right? So
pressure of pipeline, right?
you've built a nice business. You're in North America. You want, and to differentiate what you do is really hard, right? Because if you just look at executive search and go, well, there's about 5,000 companies doing it. So why are they going to deal with us? So they're going to deal with us because they trust you. They're going to trust you. They go,
Yeah.
this John guy, he knows his stuff. He's talking about strategy. He's talking about how to think about it. He's talking about succession planning. That's the kind of guy I want to have on my team, because the recruiting function, is can be done on your own, successfully or not. But boy, isn't it easier when you get someone who gets you? Like, that's the brand
Yeah.
that you can build with visibility, and people go, now I see the difference. Because how many of your competitors are out there, John? You know how many?
Oh, there's tens of
How
thousands,
many
because
are
it's not
doing
just
what I'm talking about? Very
how
few.
many. I mean, it's hard to
Very few.
say. There's a few out there that I've seen that are active on socials, but we're not just competing with the major
Exactly.
players. We're also competing with other kinds of staffing companies, recruiting companies
100%.
that are not doing exec search, and internal teams as well in some
Exactly.
cases. So it's a whole bunch of competition for us.
And
Absolutely.
that's the point, right? Is so the idea is to be able to be in service to others, to show them the value without saying we're better, because that never
Yeah.
works. But you just talk about strategically how you approach it, and people go, that's a pretty cool way to do it. I want to work with these guys. That's what happens in my world. I'm in service. I want you to learn. And then if you like me and you trust me, you'll call me and you'll say, I want to work with Alan and his team, even though you recognize, yeah, we are a premium service, so we're not for everybody. But for those who are in that market and they're CEOs of, 100 million plus businesses that we target, then those are the folks that will find us and will repel the others. That's okay. But we'll still help the others, as we're doing today.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
No, absolutely. It makes sense. I think also just the fact of like we can't help everyone, and being really adamant about working with the customers that make sense. I think that's often a mistake a lot of business leaders make with they're trying to grab everything out there
Okay.
because they think but it actually dilutes the brand as well, right? So
Absolutely.
one of the things I was going to bring up, because I know you were with YPO and being all these chapter chair, international board chair, and really just being really well connected from a networking perspective, right?
Yes.
And building those like communities of mentors and connections for leaders. What are you seeing in terms of the future of leadership? Let's say pain points leaders are finding right now, the importance of mentoring and community, because I think and we talked about this a little earlier, but the common misconception maybe is once you're a CEO, well, you got all the answers. You got it. You made it, right? So what do you say to
Wow.
that?
So such a big question. But I
Yeah,
will say
I
this.
like to lay it on. I know.
Now, leaders, you know what? Conceptually, leadership is really easy. In practice, it's really hard, right? So
Yeah,
let's be honest, right? When you're a leader of a company, your biggest problem is people. It's not strategy or distribution or execution because there's business models that kind of lay it out, then you just got to be executing. But your people, if you're doing it right, are the ones that execute on your behalf. So the challenges that they face today are that the speed of change is just incredible, right? As we know, and you see that either as an opportunity or a threat or both. It's maybe an opportunity and a threat. So I think that the first thing is they're being pulled in a lot of different directions. They don't know how to say no. So they're doing too many things. Their hours are through the roof. They're not investing in themselves and their families and their spirituality and their physicality or whatever they need to do, which makes them really crappy leaders because they're not at their best when they're feeling
yeah,
guilty about being away from family, or they're not working out and they're getting a little bit heavier than they should be, and then their mental health is being affected. So these are the challenges because the pressures to succeed are immense. Quarterly, we got to get there, we got to get there, we got to get there. Scorecards, I got to get there, I got to get there. What we try to say is take a step back for a moment, make sure that you, the human, are being the best you can be. And that sounds a little cliche, but really, you're physically, emotionally, and your leadership signal is really clear. Then everything becomes easier. But when you're fighting against, it's like a magnet pushing against. That's what's happening right now with leadership. They're trying and they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but they keep repelling because they're really not centered. I think, in my view, 20% of leaders they get it, 80% struggle. And I talk to them all the time. They struggle because they're not aligned with their values. And sometimes they're in jobs they don't want to be in because of the money. You can't succeed
yeah,
at that. So I think there's a lot there, but their biggest issues, AI, cybersecurity, succession planning, those are the big three that boards think about. And those are hard things when you're not at your best. And we try to get leaders that are working at their best so that they can tackle those things. That's what we see.
Well, about those issues, so on the cybersecurity front, I've had a good chat with Michael Obelander, and I'm having another one with Dr. Stephen Wright. So that one's covered. I
Perfect.
think from a cybersecurity standpoint, but love to talk about sort of the succession planning piece and the
Yeah.
people piece. Obviously, it pertains to us as well, right? What are you hearing from leaders in all these networking groups in terms of like pain points, building their team, their
Yeah.
team that they got to rely on?
It's hard, right? Because a lot of folks, if we talk about just the C-suite, industry can be problematic because you get a lot of what I'll call retreads, right? That have been in the industry for a while and they just move from company to company to company. And I'm a big believer because in my career, I jumped different industries that, yeah, it's nice to have a little background, but sometimes it's nice to have a fresh voice and a fresh set of eyes on a new industry. Because listen, I've had a marketing agency for 20 years. I have this for 4 years. I have talked to thousands of CEOs. There's not 5 million business models. There's
Yeah,
not. There's 10 or 15 business models with a little bit of subtlety. It's all about relationships. And I'll give you an example. One of our clients was in the trucking business,
yeah,
successful, sold it, did really well. He moved into M&A and he was worried, are people going to follow me into the supply chain M&A side? Because I don't know much about that. They all followed him. Why? Because they trusted him. They said, he'll
yeah,
figure it out because there's not that much to figure out. It's not, I've been in IT security, I've been in business equipment. There's a lot of similarities in the world. AI is messing things up a little bit because now there's new wave of business models. But that's what I would say the challenge for them is to really think through these things and then, you know, forget about the retreads, find the right people based on your values of the company, right? You have to align, you have to have likability, knowledge, obviously credibility matters, but relationships matter more than anything else because they can bring business really, really quickly. What boards are interested in is risk reduction. They're
yeah,
going to get a CEO, a new CEO coming who was VP before. Do they have the leadership signal to be great CEOs? Does the market appreciate that? They don't always think about that. They just say, I'm going to hire the best candidate who operationally has proven their success. They might be a good leader, but you need to try to be a great leader because the responsibilities go up tenfold now. So those are a few things that I think about and that I see out there.
Yeah, it's interesting about the risk aversion piece because that definitely is usually the starting point of most exec searches. The starting point is someone that's in industry, done the same thing for 5 years, same with a competitor potentially
Yeah,
that they can bring over, and they hit the ground running. No outside the box thinking from that. It's the Jello mold candidate, we call it.
I love
The
that.
unicorn, and I mean, it's okay to start from that position, but I think you're also like negatively affecting your company if you're not bringing in outside viewpoints or transferable skills, or things that added value, right, that people can bring in with a variety of experience.
100%.
And I mean, it usually that's a learning curve for either the board or the hiring committee, in terms of like, once they have some conversations, then they start to open their eyes a little bit about, okay, well, this person could fit here, and they actually bring some cool ideas,
Yeah.
as well. But you got to give them that face time to figure that out, right?
And John, think about this for a moment. How many times do you see on LinkedIn or on WhatsApp looking for a COO for my business in Amsterdam, looking for this, looking at that, and they get crickets back. Do you know why they get
Yeah,
crickets back? They haven't invested in the relationships long term to be visible so that those kind of things happen. The CEOs who do that right get flooded with opportunities. So they just think, well, it's a distribution network. No, it's not. It's a relationship network. So as a CEO, if you are out there and visible and known and trusted, then people will want to help you for
yeah.
nothing. They don't want 20%. They just said, "Oh, I'll help John. John's a good guy. John helped me the other day with whatever for free." So that's part of the reason that when CEOs are visible, it helps for the board level, helps for the business, and helps for recruiting and HR and retention as well, which is
Yeah.
another big piece, right? Retention matters in the business. And if they love the CEO because they don't get to talk to him or her, but they get to experience him or her through the content that they're creating in an authentic way, not a curated way, that helps everything better, make everything better.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely sold on building the leadership brand, but maybe you can define what leadership signal is, because that's it's an interesting kind of phrase.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, every leader has a signal, and how do they come across to the people in their world? So their style, their voice, their presence, all of those things matter. The words that they use, how they communicate, are they connecting? We almost use energy as a different word. Like if I was standing next to you in person and we didn't talk, there's an energy that people have. You
Yeah.
feel good, bad, or ugly. You feel something from them, right? Well, leadership can be felt also. They can be felt in terms of, do they really care about me? Am I expressing myself properly? Let me give you an example. Talking to a prospect who likely will become a client in Turkey the other day, and I asked him this question. I said, how do your messages land inside your boardroom? He says, actually, Alan, I find that challenging. I said, tell me more about that. He says, I said, what happens when you talk? Well, people are shuffling their feet, they're looking away, they're not. I said, why do you think that is? He says, they don't get it. And I said, so tell me, let's see, what happens when they don't get it? Well, I get more frustrated. I said, so they're used to this pattern, aren't they? You speak, they don't get it, you get frustrated, you shut them down, they don't want to talk anymore. That's the pattern, right? That's the leadership signal you're giving off. Do you know what the problem is? He goes, what? I said, you're really smart. Your IQ is probably at the genius level. He goes, actually, it is. I'm a Mensa guy. I said, great. You don't get why people don't get things at your level. They never will. They're not that smart. So you have to learn to not dumb it down, but you need to learn to communicate differently so that it feels like an invitation as opposed to you need to do this. That's what signal is. Bad signal, good signal is they get it, they feel open, they feel warm, they feel like they can talk. That when you see that in a boardroom, wow. And all of that gets transferred to video, by the way. That
Yeah.
stuff gets transferred to a video when you're out there and people go, I don't like this guy. He's full of shit. I don't like him. He's pitching. He's selling hard. He's telling me he's teaching me, but he's not. That's
Yeah.
signal. Signal is good. Signal is bad.
Yeah, and that's a relatable kind of idea because we have to be like aware, cognizant of the audience that we're
100%.
speaking to and speak
Yes.
to them. Like I know when we were in business school, we were always taught when you're writing something, write at the 8th grade level,
Yeah.
right? For any kind of business communication, because the average person is around the 8th grade reading level, writing level, and so on. Now it's probably even lower, to be honest, because education has gone
Yeah.
a pretty bad turn. But yeah, there is that disconnect, right? And I guess he wasn't aware of that because he's like, I'm just talking the way I'm talking, right? So I can appreciate that, and
There's
and
also
sometimes it's
positioning.
helpful to have that advice, that mentorship.
So, John, there's
To
also positioning how you say things as well. So, this is one challenge. The other one, one of our other clients, his entire objective was, I want to start conversations at the kitchen table. I want people talking about these issues. So he did a video. And we said, great. What do you think of the video? I like it. I think it's good. So let's go back to your objective. Your objective, your signal is you want to invite people into a conversation. So how did you start that video? You started it, well, I think there's a problem with the budget. What happens when that happens? You now have a partisan divide. People who like the government, people who don't like the government, right out of the gate. Is that what you wanted? No, I don't want that. So how can we start the video differently? You can present data as if it was an issue you're dealing with, as opposed to your perspective. We want your perspective, but we want people to have a conversation. Your perspective will help you do that. I see the difference now. So you flip it, and now the communication opens up. People go, that's cool. I should talk about that, as opposed to, I'm already shut down. That's what happens in communication with our partners, our friends, our family, our business associates, our customers, our prospects. It's not easy, but you want to make sure you have everything on the right side and know your goals before you communicate, and be intentional. Use that word earlier, John. Intentionality matters until it becomes a real skill. And then at some point, you're just you all the time. And that is really when success starts to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I can get that framing. You're talking about how you frame something because, I mean, now it's so superheated in terms
Oh,
of political and partisan divide over everything. Like it's almost a lot of times now it's you don't want to even talk because anything you say is going to be taken through a partisan lens and so on. And for me, with us, we do business in Texas, we do business in
there
New
you
York,
go.
we do business in California, and so we're trying to maintain a certain level of neutrality here
Yeah.
and not get sucked into all this kind of stuff. So,
It's too easy, right? It's too easy. But
well,
John,
it's also like a minefield, though. For a lot of
but beyond
CEOs,
it,
it's like a minefield
but
because they're
John,
getting pulled in.
you mentioned something that was really important earlier when you start thinking about positioning and conversations you have. So online, like I have a lot of opinions. If you and I were having a beer, we could talk about US
Yeah,
politics, whatever, right? I don't talk about anything like that online.
yeah,
Why? It doesn't serve me. Why
yeah,
am I online? I'm online with two core objectives. One is to help and be of service in the expertise that I have, which is both leadership and leadership branding, because they're tied together. And the other one really is to help grow my business because they're all tied to that. But I'm in the service of others first. If I start
yeah,
talking about US politics, what's going to happen? Is it serving me? No. I start talking about what's happening in Israel. Will it serve me? No. And now I'm just going to create fights. So if that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. But if it's not helping your goal of why you're there, and including, by the way, if you're looking for a job and you're partisan online, guess what? People can see that. If
yeah,
you're going to Texas and you're saying bad things about America and you're getting a job in Texas, they're going to know that. And you won't even know that they know that. So be
yeah.
aware that everything you do is visible. So make sure you're putting your best foot forward and your authenticity comes through. Then you won't have the worries that you talked about earlier. Just don't talk about it. Talk about it at the kitchen table, not publicly.
What would you say though to like? And there's been pressure though, and this is where I think we've seen some prime examples like Disney and Netflix, where there's so much either internal pressure or external pressure from groups for them to take a stand.
Yeah.
And I know with Disney at first, the CEO did not want to get involved. He was like, I don't want to get involved in this. But then eventually they had to kind of take a stand. And then it became a political nightmare for them.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're one of those bigger companies? Because you deal with big companies usually, right? And
there's no silver bullet answer to that. But what I would caution CEOs to do is just be aligned with your values. Whatever that is. And sometimes when you're aligned with your values, it could cost you money. But if you do the right thing all the time, if you take a company like, use Disney, they've been around for, I don't know, 70, 80 years, 90 years. Maybe they'll be around for 100 years. It's a long game.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you sit there going, in the short term, if I don't do this, it's going to cost me subscribers. It's going to do, yeah, it might. But then you're going to be seen as someone who just kowtows to whoever's in politics today, because that will change in 3 years. And I'm not trying to get political, but whatever the situation is, this too shall pass. It will pass. Can you ride it? Well, that's why you have contingency money. That's why you have reserves to get you through the shitty times that businesses will have. But I always say, live with your shareholders matter, your values matter. And if you compromise your values once, you are always going to compromise your values in the future. To me, that's simple. I say no to stuff that I could make tons of money at, because it's not the right thing to do. I can't teach my son that's the right thing to do. It doesn't get done. Even if there's $1 million at the end of that rainbow, I'm not doing it. Maybe I'll never be a billionaire. That's okay. I sleep very well at night. And that's what I think some of the stuff that these guys and gals can think about.
Yeah, I mean, being morally consistent and actually being true to your values, that's a huge thing, and something I've definitely ascribed by. Being able to look yourself in the mirror, I think, is huge. And having a clear conscience, that's above any profit you can make, right? At least for me anyways. But
it comes back to our mantra, John, at the end of the day, is the whole world done properly is done with trust in mind. We're in the trust building business. We help you make sure that you can communicate so that you build trust, right? If you do that, any outcome's possible. Without it, no outcome is possible.
Yeah.
No outcome is possible. So that's the work that we try to ascribe to people. And it's fun when it works. It really is fun when it works.
Nice. And so we're talking about like leadership going forward and your philosophy of leadership, right? And authenticity and transparency now seem to be a differentiator, a strategic advantage, right?
100%.
I know for us, transparency, we find alignment on that because that's one of our core values with our company too, right? So how do you sort of work with executives in terms of telling them like transparency is actually a good thing, and a lot of times, sometimes companies want to be more secretive with certain things, or they don't want to share for various reasons. And, backlash is one of them, but how is transparency a differentiator in 2025, 26 here?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we come back to who's buying from you, another human, right? It's another human.
Yeah.
It's not an AI buying from you yet. Maybe in the future it will
Not
be.
yet, yes.
Right, but maybe in the future it will be. But today it's another human that's doing that, right? So at the end of it, when you think through it, really think through it, back to the trust conversation, right? Transparency doesn't mean sharing corporate secrets. It does not mean that. It means positioning yourself. So I was with a prospect the other day. He says, I don't want to talk about this stuff because I don't want my competitors to know. I said, great. What do you love? He said, well, I love entrepreneurship. Talk about that. Talk about entrepreneurship, talk about leadership, because guess what? If you connect with somebody who's in your target audience, by the way, you want to go to hospitality, target hospitality people, talk to them, go comment to them. They see what you do for a living every time you comment. He's in this business. Great. So you're connecting the dots without ever selling a thing. But you don't have to be transparent in corporate secrets, but transparent in the service of others is what we always say. Be in the service of others. Stuff will happen to you. I'll give you a quick example. I was on a WhatsApp group maybe a year ago now, and I saw this guy commenting. I said, what a cool guy. I went and I connected with him on LinkedIn. I said, hey, saw you on our WhatsApp group. I just wanted to connect here, blah, blah, blah. That's all I said. And what happened? He comes back. Oh, I see you're in the leadership branding business. I need some help with that. Can you help me? Did I pitch him? I noticed him. I went back and I said, I think you're pretty cool. And that was it. And then boom, opportunity showed up on my doorstep. What happened there? You have to listen attentively to the market, to the people, and then be in service to others. That kind of stuff will come back to you in spades. So vulnerability, open, trusting, and transparent, and authentic. Authentic is you and I, if we were in a Starbucks today, we would have the same conversation. I'm
Yeah.
not performing. You're not performing. I'm not using my hands more than I normally do. I'm just trying to be as helpful as I can to your audience. And if that's the case, then maybe somebody goes, I like him. I don't like him, whatever. But if I like him and I'm in that market, maybe I want to talk to him because he can be helpful to me. Done. That's what happens in your world, John. Why do they work with you guys?
Absolutely.
Because they trust you to do the work that 5,000 other companies technically can do, but they choose you guys for a reason.
Yeah.
That's
I
what's
get that. And I think one of the points too is like we tend to attract the energy we put out into the world, right?
Love that.
So that's a key thing. Like when you find people you synergize with, you feel their vibes, even online, you can sort of feel that oh, this is a person that we're aligned values wise. And that's kind of important, I guess, in this world where values, we often say, you know, a lot of traditional values are gone now. And there's been a push, I think, lately for a lot of people of returning to those kind of, and I call them American values, those kind of feelings of like, you know, salt of the earth kind of people.
Yeah.
One lady the other day, she was talking to me. She's like, oh, you know, she was, we were doing a pre-interview talk for the podcast. She's like, you're really like salt of the earth type person. You know, I was like, that's kind of funny.
That is kind
Like I'm a farmer or something, you know, but no, what she meant was that, you know, like, I'm like, yeah, we're just, you know, we're good Canadian boys here and we're just trying to run an honest business. That's really it. But so you attract that kind of thing. And
I agree.
And it's funny because I'm actually have it recording with her later today. So, but that's it. You attract what you put out. And I think as a leader, you got to be aware of that. And having someone like yourself that can come in and be like, this is what you're putting out right now. And sometimes it takes that third person. And I always tell people, like, talk to your mentors, talk to your friends. You got to get that feedback because you assume that what you're communicating is going to be taken a certain way. And this is a perfect thing for me where I'm like, I don't like to text people because how my tone, how many people have gotten into an argument with a spouse or something by a text message, right?
Yeah.
Because there's that signal you're talking about, how it's perceived by the text the tone could be so many different ways, right? So we have to be a little bit more in tune with what tone we're putting out or leadership signal we're putting out.
So John, to build on that, so that's why we use video both as a teaching tool. So when we work with CEOs, we coach them through these videos because it helps them apply their communication directly. And then that's what ultimately gets online. But then imagine now that conversation that you're having is now scaled to thousands of people. That's done correctly. That's magic. And people, when you come back and see the comments they're not related to, I'm going to buy your stuff. They're related to the topic at hand, whatever that is you're doing, because you're building trust and starting conversations, which end up in relationships, and the relationships end up in business. So it's a very simple procedure. If you're patient and your goal is to serve others, then that other stuff comes back to you in spades. Always does. If you're patient and you do it right.
Yeah. And what channels do you recommend for CEOs in 2026? Is it like YouTube, TED Talks? Like what's
So it
where should
comes
they be
back to
focusing
how
their
much
efforts?
time and money you have, right? At the end of the day, where your audience is the number one thing. So LinkedIn is almost always for all our clients. 90% of our clients are LinkedIn, YouTube. Those are the two primary ones. If they're now in a B2C market, then, Instagram, TikTok, you want to continue on Medium and you want to do TED Talks, you want to do podcasts, you want to do speaking gigs. I mean, it's limitless in terms of opportunity, but with the time that they have and the goals that they have, we try to focus them on LinkedIn and YouTube. We do the work for them. That's part of our model with our Strata 360 model. We do the work for them, but they're the content. So we're not writing their content. It's their face, their voice, everything, their leadership presence that's out there. We're just their back office. And we help them figure out how to get out there. But those are the two primary tools. But the simple rule is Where's your audience? Find them, talk to them. That's it. But most CEOs are not doing that well. Most are not. So let's get you set up for a year before we start getting you on podcasts and speaking gigs and media opportunities and TED Talks. And you can go write a book. There's a million ways to communicate. Let's get you right first, then open up the distribution later.
It's funny because I'm actually having someone come on the podcast that's an actual author, and she writes books and
Absolutely.
ghostwrites for
100%.
leaders, right? And using that as a tool to build your personal brand. So we're going to be talking with Aurora Winter about that one. So yeah, I mean,
it's great to do that. Writing a book is a wonderful tool to do that. It's like we're writing a book as well. And that book, I don't care how many I sell, I'm giving them away to leaders.
Yeah.
Giving them away. Here you go. Here's a gift. I got to talk to these people. That's what a book is. You're not going to be like Harry Potter. You're not going to be that. No one's going to do that and make money off a book.
Yeah.
But boy, what a great tool. So yeah, she's right on. And we're going to have similar conversation with her, but it's on the process of writing the book is getting their story straight. And, I'm sure she's amazing at that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Well, there's a lot of things to think about for leaders in terms of like getting out there, starting to at least build their personal brand or social presence.
Yeah.
That takes time. It's helpful if you have sort of that mentorship and support you can get to do that. And we've seen where it goes bad. I mean, the times where it goes bad it's very how would you put it? The news cycle is not it's definitely punishing.
Oh yeah.
For people that make that
Even
mistake.
John, right? If you and I did something, if I did something stupid or you did something stupid, it's going out on YouTube. It's going out and someone goes, look what they did. You're done. So everything you do, just be mindful. The world is watching. Leaders, the world is watching you internally, externally, and on these tools. This is not risk-free, what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's effective if it's done right? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where maybe not going live and being able to edit helps too. You can go back and, well, let's clean this up a little bit, guys, because you shouldn't have said those words.
I've had a few lives. I've done a few live podcasts. They're a lot of fun, but some guy could ask you, I don't get stumped too often, but I had a guy almost stumped me on a question and I managed to recover. In my head, it was 30 seconds, but it's like 3 seconds. But yeah, it's risk. But I like that stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, we're all human too, and we're, you're not always going to show up your 100%, but I think at least being authentic in how you show up, and
100%.
that's probably the most important thing because people can really smell when you're putting a show on, the performative kind of piece. I think there's a little bit too much of that now. That's going out there is that kind of performative fakeness, and it can be a very big turnoff, even if the message is a good one. Like,
I'm with you.
If they don't believe what you're saying, or they think that you don't believe what you're saying, that's a huge no for me as well.
John, right? It's what we talked about all the podcast was. This is a trust game. If you're performing, are you building trust? No. Are you selling something? Maybe. That's okay. You want to buy my mug? Great. You can buy my mug. If I'm clear that I'm selling you my mug, that's not about trust building. That's just about selling. Nothing wrong with it. Just not what we do.
No, it totally makes sense.
Cool.
Well, I will end on that note, and I appreciate all the advice in terms of how leaders need to really start thinking about having a good online presence, building their leadership signal in a way that's you can frame correctly, you can communicate correctly, and is received by the audience correctly as well, right? So that's some things we need to be thinking about.
And if I can offer one thing before we wrap up, John, is that for CEOs, for leaders, we've created a free scorecard for them. They can go online, answer 10 questions, and they'll get some content related to where they are in their journey. So free stuff, very helpful. You end up being compared to other CEOs where you land, but it's a scorecard that people have found great value in understanding where they are so they can know where they need to go. So if anybody's interested in that, just reach out. It's on my LinkedIn and it's free, and no pitching goes on, just helping.
Nice. Well, that's definitely something I'll check out in terms of am I communicating correctly?
That'd be great.
It'd be funny if I'm ranked at all. It'd be like, no, you're we don't know who you are. ChatGPT doesn't know who you are yet. Anyways, it's funny.
Yeah.
But no, thanks a lot for coming on today.
I
Appreciate it.
enjoyed it, John. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
All right.